I wanted a simple backyard wedding, but my control freak still had other plans. She went behind my back and planned an extravagant wedding. I'm Skylar, 28F, and I've been with my fiancé Joshua, 30M, for 5 years. Our love story began in a quaint coffee shop where we both reached for the last blueberry muffin. It was like a scene from a rom-com, and we've been inseparable ever since. Joshua proposed 6 months ago during a sunset hike in the mountains, and we've been slowly planning our wedding, savoring every moment of our engagement. Joshua comes from a close-knit family, which I've grown to love over the years. His parents, Mark and Linda, have always been welcoming, treating me like a daughter from day one. Joshua's older sister, Madison, 32F, on the other hand, has been a bit of a challenge. She's married to Richard, 35M, and they have 2 adorable kids, Rosalie, 6, and Lucas, 4. Madison has always been the type to want control over family events, a trait that stems from her being the oldest sibling and feeling responsible for everyone's happiness. This tendency is only intensified since Joshua and I started dating. I remember when we first met, she insisted on planning our first date, a formal dinner at an upscale restaurant. Joshua politely declined, opting instead for a casual picnic in the park, which was much more our style. Over the years, Madison's need for control has manifested in various ways. She once surprised us with a couples cooking class for our anniversary, despite knowing I'm a vegetarian and the class focused on preparing meat dishes. Another time, she took it upon herself to redecorate our apartment while we were on vacation, replacing our eclectic, bohemian decor with her preferred minimalist style. While we appreciated the thought, it felt like a violation of our space and personal taste. When we announced our engagement, we were clear about our vision, a small, intimate wedding that reflected our laid-back personalities. We dreamed of a backyard ceremony with fairy lights, wildflowers, and our closest family and friends. Nothing extravagant, just a celebration of our love surrounded by nature and the people who matter most to us. However, Madison had other ideas. The day after our announcement, she showed up at our apartment with a stack of bridal magazines and a binder full of ideas. She volunteered to plan the entire wedding, talking excitedly about ballrooms, ice sculptures, and a guest list of over 200 people. We thanked her for her enthusiasm but gently explained that we wanted to handle the planning ourselves. That's when things started to get messy. Madison began calling me daily with wedding ideas. She'd send links to expensive venues, suggest elaborate themes, and even started a wedding Pinterest board in my name without my permission. I tried to be polite, reminding her each time that we wanted something simple, but she wouldn't listen. It was as if she had selective hearing when it came to our wishes. One day, she called to tell me she had scheduled appointments with 3 different wedding planners. I had to put my foot down and tell her that we didn't want or need a wedding planner. She seemed hurt but backed off for a few days. The situation came to a head last month. Joshua and I had finally decided on a date and started looking at backyard venues. We found a beautiful property with an old oak tree that would be perfect for our ceremony. Excited about our progress, we shared the news with Joshua's family over dinner. Madison's reaction was explosive. She stood up, her face flushed with anger, and declared that a backyard wedding wasn't good enough for her brother. She insisted that as the only married sibling, she knew best and that we would regret not having a proper wedding. The next day, she showed up at our apartment unannounced, waving brochures for fancy hotel ballrooms. She had already spoken to the event coordinators and was ready to put down deposits. That's when I finally snapped. I told her that while we appreciated her enthusiasm, this was our wedding, not hers. I explained that we had a vision and a budget, and her ideas didn't align with either. I reminded her of all the times she had overstepped in our relationship and how it made us feel. Madison burst into tears, accusing me of pushing her out of her brother's life and ruining their family dynamics. Joshua, who had been quiet until this point, backed me up. He told Madison she needed to respect our decisions and that her behavior was pushing us away, not bringing us closer. Madison left in a huff, slamming the door behind her. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. The next day, Joshua's parents called. Apparently, Madison had told them we were being unreasonable and excluding the family from the wedding planning. His mom suggested we let Madison help to keep the peace, while his dad remained neutral, caught between his children. Joshua stood firm, explaining our position and the history of Madison's interference. His parents seemed to understand but still urged us to find a compromise to maintain family harmony. Since then, Madison has been giving us the cold shoulder. She's been posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about ungrateful couples and the importance of family. Some of Joshua's extended family have reached out, urging us to include Madison more. His aunt even suggested letting Madison plan the rehearsal dinner as a compromise. Joshua and I are standing our ground, but the family pressure is intense. We don't want to cause a rift, but we also don't want to give up our vision for our special day. We've worked hard to save for this wedding, and every decision we've made has been thoughtful and meaningful to us. The whole situation has put a damper on what should be a joyous time in our lives. Instead of excitedly planning our wedding, we find ourselves dreading family gatherings and fielding calls from well-meaning relatives trying to mediate the situation. Joshua has been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. He stood by my side, presenting a united front to his family. But I can see the toll it's taking on him. He loves his sister, despite her overbearing nature, and the current tension is breaking his heart. We've considered various compromises, letting Madison help with smaller aspects of the wedding, involving her in the planning of a bridal shower, or asking her to do a reading during the ceremony. But every time we extend an olive branch, she sees it as an opportunity to push for more control. As our wedding date approaches, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Do we stand firm in our decisions and risk further family strife? Or do we give in to Madison's wishes for the sake of peace, even if it means sacrificing our dream wedding? I can't help but wonder, if we're refusing to let my sister-in-law plan my wedding? Are we being too rigid, or are we justified in wanting to plan our own celebration? How do we navigate this family minefield without losing ourselves in the process? Update 1: It's been a month since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. Your words have helped Joshua, and I feel more confident in our decision to stay true to our vision. However, I'm sad to report that things have only gotten more complicated. After the initial drama, we decided to proceed with our plans. We found a beautiful backyard venue, a charming old farmhouse with sprawling grounds and a picturesque pond. The owner, a sweet elderly lady named Mrs. Thompson, was excited about our vision and even offered to let us use her vintage farmhouse tables and chairs for the reception. We were thrilled and thought the worst was behind us. We were wrong. 2 weeks ago, we had a family dinner at Joshua's parents' house. It was the first time we'd all been together since the big blow-up. Madison was there with Richard and the kids. At first, everything seemed fine. She was civil, if a bit cold. We made small talk about the kids' school and Richard's new job. I even complimented Madison on her new haircut, hoping to ease the tension. But halfway through dinner, as we were enjoying Linda's famous pot roast, Madison dropped a bombshell. She announced that she had taken the liberty of booking a venue for our wedding, a lavish country club that was way out of our budget. She had even put down a non-refundable deposit, using money she and Richard had been saving for a family vacation. Her reasoning? She wanted to surprise us with the perfect wedding gift. She went on to describe the venue in detail: the grand ballroom with crystal chandeliers, the manicured gardens perfect for photos, the gourmet kitchen ready to serve a 5-course meal. With each word, I felt my heart sink further. Joshua and I were stunned into silence. When we didn't immediately express gratitude, Madison's eyes welled up with tears. She started crying, saying she was just trying to help, that she wanted her little brother to have the best wedding possible. Joshua's parents seemed torn. Mark looked uncomfortable, pushing food around his plate, while Linda reached out to pat Madison's hand, murmuring that she was sure we appreciated the gesture. Rosalie and Lucas, picking up on the tension, started to fuss, adding to the chaos. Joshua spoke up, his voice calm but firm. He told Madison that while we appreciated the thought, we wouldn't be using the venue. He explained again that we had our own plans, that we'd found a place that perfectly matched our vision. He reminded her that we'd been clear about wanting a small, intimate wedding, and that the country club was the opposite of what we wanted. Madison's tears dried up instantly, replaced by anger. She exploded, accusing us of being ungrateful and insulting her taste. She turned to her parents, asking how they could let Joshua throw away such an opportunity. She even brought up childhood memories, reminding Joshua of all the times she'd looked out for him, implying he owed her this. The dinner devolved into chaos. Joshua's dad tried to mediate, suggesting we all take a breath and discuss this rationally. Linda seemed to side with Madison, telling us we should at least go look at the venue before making a decision. Richard sat silently, looking like he wanted to disappear. Joshua and I left early, feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. On the drive home, we talked about how this was affecting us. Joshua admitted feeling guilty, wondering if we were being too stubborn. I reassured him that we had every right to have the wedding we wanted, but I couldn't help feeling a twinge of doubt myself. The fallout has been significant. Madison has been calling and texting family members, painting us as the villains. She's claiming we're rejecting her generosity and driving a wedge in the family. Some relatives have been reaching out, suggesting we reconsider to keep the peace. Joshua's cousin Amy called, telling us how Madison had sobbed to her about how we were ruining her relationship with Joshua. His Aunt Susan sent a lengthy email about the importance of family unity and how we'd look back on this and regret not accepting Madison's gift. Even Mrs. Thompson, our venue owner, got dragged into the drama. Somehow, Madison got her number and called her, trying to convince her to cancel our reservation. Thankfully, Mrs. Thompson stood firm, but she gently suggested we sort out our family issues before the big day. Joshua and I are staying strong, but it's taking a toll. We've had more arguments in the past 2 weeks than in our entire relationship. Not about the wedding itself, we're united on that front, but about how to handle the family pressure. Joshua feels torn between his loyalty to me and his love for his sister, despite her actions. We're considering eloping to avoid the drama, but that feels like letting Madison win. Plus, we really do want to celebrate with our loved ones. We're also worried about the long-term impact on family relationships. Will Madison ever forgive us if we don't use her gift? Will Joshua's parents resent us for causing this rift? For now, we're proceeding with our original plans. Joshua has made it clear to his family that any further interference will result in them not being invited to the wedding at all. It's a harsh stance, but we feel it's necessary to protect our vision and our sanity. We're trying to focus on the positive aspects of our upcoming marriage, our love, our shared dreams, the life we're building together. But it's hard with all this tension looming over us. What should have been a joyous time of planning and anticipation has turned into a stress-filled nightmare. Has anyone dealt with something similar? How did you handle it? Did you stand your ground or compromise for the sake of family peace? And how do you move forward once the wedding is over? Any advice would be greatly appreciated as we navigate this challenging time. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm still in shock at how things have unfolded. I want to thank everyone again for their support and advice. Your words have been a beacon of sanity in this storm of wedding drama. After the disastrous family dinner, Joshua and I decided to take a step back from wedding planning and focus on us. We went on a weekend getaway to a cozy bed and breakfast in the mountains. No phones, no family, just us. We hiked, stargazed, and had long conversations about our future. It was exactly what we needed to decompress and reconnect. We came back refreshed and more determined than ever to have the wedding we wanted. We dove back into planning, choosing wildflowers for the bouquets and designing simple, elegant invitations. We even started dance lessons for our first dance, laughing as we stepped on each other's toes. However, life had other plans. A week after our return, we received an envelope in the mail. The return address was the country club Madison had booked. Curious and a bit apprehensive, we opened it. Inside was an invitation to our own wedding. Yes, you read that right. Madison had taken it upon herself to not only book the country club but to plan the entire wedding. She had sent out invitations to over 200 people, most of whom we didn't even know. There were Joshua's old high school teachers, distant cousins we'd never met, and even some of Madison's own friends. The invitation detailed a lavish affair that was the complete opposite of what we wanted. A 5-course meal featuring foods neither of us particularly liked. A live band playing music that wasn't our style. There was even mention of a fireworks display, which seemed both excessive and potentially terrifying for Rosalie and Lucas. Joshua and I were livid. This was the last straw. All the stress and frustration of the past months bubbled over. Joshua immediately called his parents and demanded a family meeting. The next day, we all gathered at their house. The atmosphere was tense as we sat around the dining room table. Joshua's parents looked worried, Madison seemed defensive, and Richard just looked tired. Joshua laid out everything Madison had done, from the initial interference to this latest stunt. His voice shook with emotion as he described how her actions had turned what should have been a happy time into a nightmare. He made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable and that if she didn't back off, she would no longer be welcome in our lives. It was hard to hear him say those words, knowing how close they had once been. Madison tried to defend herself, claiming she was doing it out of love. She talked about how she'd always looked out for Joshua, how she wanted his wedding to be perfect. She brought up childhood memories, times she'd protected him from bullies or helped him with homework. But when Joshua's parents saw the invitation and realized the extent of her actions, they finally understood the gravity of the situation. They were shocked and embarrassed by Madison's behavior. Linda's face fell as she read through the guest list, recognizing names of people Joshua hadn't spoken to in years. In a surprising turn of events, Joshua's dad stood up. Mark had always been the quiet one, preferring to stay out of conflicts. But now, he looked at Madison with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. He told her that her actions were selfish and disrespectful. He reminded her that Joshua was an adult capable of making his own decisions. Then he said something that stunned us all: if she didn't apologize and step back, she would be the one excluded from family events, not us. The room fell silent. Madison's face crumpled, and she burst into tears. It seemed she was finally realizing the consequences of her actions. Between sobs, she apologized, admitting that she had gotten carried away. She promised to cancel everything and respect our wishes. Richard spoke up for the first time, apologizing for not reining Madison in sooner. He looked exhausted, and I wondered how much stress this had put on their own marriage. While we appreciated the apology, Joshua and I agreed that we needed time and space. The trust had been broken, and it would take time to rebuild. We told the family that we would be planning our wedding without any input from them, and that we'd let them know the details when we were ready. As we left, Linda hugged us both, whispering how sorry she was for not seeing what was happening sooner. Mark shook Joshua's hand, then surprised him with a hug, telling him how proud he was of Joshua for standing up for himself and our relationship. It's been a difficult few weeks since that meeting. We're finally back on track with our original plans, but the emotional toll has been significant. We found a new backyard venue, a charming garden owned by a local florist. It's smaller than Mrs. Thompson's place, but it feels right for us. We're moving forward with our intimate ceremony plans, but there's still an undercurrent of tension. We're unsure about including Madison in the wedding party as we had originally planned. On one hand, she is Joshua's sister and excluding her completely feels wrong. On the other hand, we're wary of giving her any position that might tempt her to overstep again. Joshua has been having long phone conversations with his parents, working through years of family dynamics that led to this situation. I've overheard him talking about always feeling overshadowed by Madison, about how her controlling nature had affected him growing up. It's been painful but also healing for him. We're taking it one day at a time, focusing on each other and the life we're building together. This experience has been eye-opening for all of us. It showed us the importance of setting boundaries and standing our ground. While family is important, our relationship and happiness come first. As we move forward with our wedding plans, we're holding on to our vision of a day filled with love, laughter, and simplicity. It may not be the elaborate affair Madison envisioned, but it will be perfectly us. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that we finally had our wedding. After all the drama and stress, the day itself was everything we hoped for and more. We stuck to our guns and had the intimate backyard wedding we'd always wanted. We found a charming little place just outside the city, owned by a retired couple who were thrilled to host our celebration. The garden was in full bloom, providing a natural, colorful backdrop that needed minimal decoration. We kept the guest list to 50 of our closest friends and family. It was a tough decision, but we decided to invite Madison and her family. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, she kept her distance and respected our boundaries. It was a tentative piece, but it was a start. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. My best friend played the guitar as I walked down the aisle, and Joshua's eyes lit up when he saw me. We wrote our own vows, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Joshua's voice cracked as he promised to always support my dreams, and I had to pause to compose myself as I vowed to be his partner in all of life's adventures. The reception was relaxed and fun, just as we'd envisioned. We had food trucks instead of a formal dinner, offering a variety of cuisines that reflected our love of travel. There was great music, but instead of a band, we had a playlist of our favorite songs. The dance floor was never empty, from our first dance to the final song of the night. One of the most touching moments came during the toasts. Joshua's dad stood up and gave a heartfelt speech about love, forgiveness, and the importance of staying true to yourself. He raised his glass to us, saying how proud he was of the way we had handled everything. I saw Madison dabbing at her eyes during his speech. Speaking of Madison, she approached us during the reception with a heartfelt apology gift, a photo album filled with pictures of Joshua and me throughout our relationship. It was a touching gesture that showed she was trying to make amends. She had even included some candid shots from the wedding planning drama, with a note saying she hoped we could laugh about it someday. The wedding went off without a hitch, and even Madison seemed to enjoy the laid-back atmosphere. She complimented us on how beautiful everything was, admitting that she could see why we wanted this type of celebration. It wasn't the full reconciliation we might have hoped for, but it was a step in the right direction. As Joshua and I drove off at the end of the night, tin cans rattling behind our car, Joshua's dad's idea, he said some traditions were worth keeping, we felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. We had stayed true to ourselves and our vision, and the result was a day filled with genuine joy and love. This experience has brought about some positive changes in our family dynamics. Joshua's parents have become more aware of Madison's tendency to overstep and have been actively working on setting boundaries with her. Madison herself seems to be making an effort to be more considerate of others' feelings and choices. As for Joshua and me, we're enjoying newlywed life and looking forward to our future together. We're grateful for this challenging experience as it's made our relationship stronger and taught us valuable lessons about standing up for ourselves and our choices. Our honeymoon is coming up next month, a backpacking trip through Southeast Asia. It's another choice that raised some eyebrows. Madison suggested a luxury resort, but it's perfectly us. We can't wait for the adventure.